This is Jan Martin coming to you again from her very crazy dining room. And today we're going to be celebrating Earth Day in a couple of different manners. One of which is we're going to talk a little bit about recycling. In honor of today being the 50th celebration of Earth Day, I've been working on creating something out of all the plastic bags we get. In this, recently I went to the grocery store with my reusable bags and they told me I couldn't use them because of the sanitary concerns. So I have even more plastic bags. So I am turning my plastic bags into yarn. It's called Plarn. And eventually I will have a bag that I can use for probably in my garden for collecting vegetables and things when I finally get the garden going. But the other thing we're going to do today is celebrate science with a science app that comes to us from the Lawrence Hall of Science. And now I'm going to get my little science geek thing on because the Lawrence Hall of Science, which is at the University of California, Berkeley, is named in honor of a South Dakota native. The South Dakota native we're talking about is E.O. Lawrence. He was born and grew up in Canton, South Dakota, and the elementary school in Canton is named for him. And if we ever get to go back to the Discovery Center again, there is a sign and some things with our nano exhibit, honoring E.O. Lawrence. He was a physicist who did a lot of work that actually with using cyclotrons, which is beyond my level of understanding, but it has contributed a great deal to our understanding of a lot of different things in physics. So I'm going to have Anne go to the website so we can kind of get a quick look at what's there. So on the website, this for the Lawrence Hall of Science, there's a link that is known as DIY Science. And on that page are a variety of science apps that have been developed for use in the classroom or at home. And so today, we're going to be talking about the app, The Lake, since it's a good one for Earth Day and studying. So we've got, this is one of the pictures of what it looks like in the app. Has to be downloaded off the website, and it's good on right now on an iPhone or an iPad. So what we're going to do today is walk you through a little bit of what's on the app, the resources that are available to you. There's lots of experiments, there's videos, there's a simulation, which is what you see right there. And so we're going to scroll down a little bit further. And so on the website, it has the links for, downloading activities if you needed to. If you didn't have the app, you can get into some of the resources that way. There's outside activities, some great outside activities, studying lakes and ponds, as well as then inside activities. And so we're going to do one of the inside activities today, known as the water bugs. But after and on the app website, there's also something, there's some other links to resources that are really quite useful at home and for school for younger children. So there's lots and lots and lots of resources. So, and Anne is showing you here, the activity is available to you on the website. And then we're going to walk through it because then we're going to now do the activity. So if we could go, yes. So for doing this activity, which is actually a pretty low-tech activity, we are 3 containers of water, paper clips, and some dirt. I'm using some coffee grounds for the dirt and some soap, and we'll find out what this is all about here in a minute. But the main player in the activity are the paper clips. The directions tell you to twist the paper clip into a little triangle with a handle. And you use that to then very gently put it in the water. Notice mine fell. That it takes a very careful hand for doing this. And I've got a feeling that for whatever reason, maybe it was too much coffee this morning. My hands are a little shaky this afternoon. So I'm going to use a trick I learned years ago on how to make paper clips float. Well, that didn't work so well. So I'm now taking a bigger paper clip. I've made a handle. And I'm going to very carefully put, and that one's just going to stay there. We're going to lower the paper clip into the water using the handle, and we'll add another one. And so now I bumped the one, which happens. So now we have a water bug. This would be very similar. You know, we're trying to simulate various bugs that live on the surface of the water. And see, now I got that one to float. So I've got two different kinds I have two species now of my insects. This is really nice, clean water. They're floating very nicely. And it's hard to see here, but if you do this at home, you'll see there's little bubbles. It's almost like a cushion that is being created. The water is surrounding the paperclip, and water bugs they can stride on the water because they're doing something very similar. Well, we don't have too many places where the lake is perfectly clean and clear. So now we're going to see what happens if we add a whole bunch of dirt to the water. Does it impact the ability for the water to hold up the bugs? So let's see what happens. We still have our water bugs floating away here. It's hard to see because it's in the background, but I am able to get the insects to float on the water. However, so, you know, some of us think dirty things are pollution, they're sources of pollution, and that's not incorrect. Certain kinds of things and too much of something is definitely going to create a problem. So now I'm going to put my finger, which I've just put a little bit of soap on, into my third bowl of water. And we're going to very carefully notice how it's hard to see, but it will not let the paperclip float, so that the surface tension has been destroyed because of the addition of the soap to the water, which is one of the reasons why when we add soap to water, it cleans things much better. But that's a different discussion. So today, this was an activity from the app DIY Lake that's available to us from the Lawrence Hall of Science. And now we will see how effectively this will work. Okay, so now this is what it looks like on the phone. And there are 3 parts to the app. There's Under the Lake, which is a simulation. You can simulate what a lake, we have deep lakes and we have shallow lakes, so we can change the lake to being deeper, shallow. We can have a temperate lake. A temperate lake would be a lake like Lake Oahe, or we can make the lake be a Mediterranean lake. And I went really fast, but we're seeing different temperatures, different colors showing up in the lakes as we are changing the type of lake. So now I'm also going to go back to, this is a Mediterranean lake, but it's a deep lake. So it's still pretty cold because the darker the blue, the colder the water. And the water here, very similar in temperature, because during the summer when the temperature is 15 degrees Celsius or warmer, now if I've warmed it way up, notice how the temperature is changing on the lake. I find it really fascinating. Now we're going to go to winter or cooler weather. The lake is getting colder and it's really cold. And now we can see it's the top of the lake is freezing. However, do most lakes freeze solid? That's a really important question to think about. A good, and it also has sound effects. Notice how much more of the shallow lake has frozen in our temperate climate. And there is sound effects, which is, I think, really kind of funny. So you can you can use that simulation to look at various variables in terms of temperature and what impacts the temperature of a lake and things like that. Then there's a series of activities, of which we just did one. And there's outdoor activities as well as indoor activities. The other really fun one to do, can get a little messy, is called Make a Lake, using a dish tub and some newspaper and some plastic, like an old plastic shower curtain, and you are building mountains and creating watersheds. Because where does the water come from? When we have the water running off, where does the water come from? And for us here in Pierre, a lot of our water is coming from the mountains in Montana, because the runoff from the mountains in Montana goes through the Missouri River Basin and through the various dams and lakes on the Missouri River system. So it is there, yeah. And Anna's showing us there on the website the information on doing the Make a Lake activity. And you make it one way and then you build it a different way, and you're creating a watershed and looking at runoff and the impacts of different kinds of runoff for pollution, as well as using this watershed and this landscape you've created to determine a good place to live, a good place to farm, a good place to place a town. So there's lots of opportunities to do a lot of exploration about the impact of water and decisions we make. And in South Dakota, that's really an important idea, because we have places that have been underwater for the last couple of years that were dry when people first built their houses and started to farm on that land. So that we have a very shallow watershed on the eastern side of the state, where the James River Valley does not have much runoff, so that on years where there's lots of precipitation, we get different things happening than we do in years of no or light precipitation. And this year was, we're still waiting. At least we have not had the super bad spring storms like we did last year. So hopefully some of that land will get to dry up. And then the third thing that there is on the app are a series of videos. They're all very short. Some of them are a little longer. And it allows you to explore things like, well, the Earth's water cycle. It's a NASA video. There's a number of NASA videos on here, and how lake temperatures and how our changing climates can impact the temperature of a lake, as well as different activities. There's a whole set of activities called plum landing that go along with some of the activities that you can do. So these are good. You can watch the video before you go do the activity. Then the ones I really find fascinating are lakes of the world, because in the weirdest places, Australia has a bright pink lake. Why does Australia have a bright pink lake? It's worth finding out. And think of Antarctica. In the Antarctic, there's a buried lake. Again, really interesting. There's a video on a lake called Jellyfish Lake, and another one on Lake Baikal, which is in Russia, and it has some very interesting characteristics that are different from other lakes. So this is just a quick snapshot of the many different things that the Lawrence Hall of Science has for us. These apps, which cover earth science, space science, and life sciences, are usable at various grade levels. They're family-oriented activities as well, so you could use them in the classroom related to the topics you're wanting to study. And it's all very compact and contained, so that the videos are all there. You don't have to go looking for them. It has good hands-on activities. And of course, I'm just going to put a little plug in for another Lawrence Hall of Science set of resources, which the South Dakota Discovery Center has available for teachers to check out and use in their classrooms. And those are our GEMS kits, which are great explorations in math and science. And that's something like, they're just, you get the kit and pretty much everything you need except for maybe electricity and water are included in the kit for you, so that they're self-contained. You just have to go through the manual and learn, decide what, how you're going to set it up in your classroom. There's enough materials for at least 32 students, because when those units were developed and researched and developed, many places in the country have classrooms, elementary classrooms with 32 or more students. So the kits are designed to support large groups of students. And then the other thing that Lawrence Hall of Science has done at the elementary level, elementary middle school level, is developed a series of science curriculum known as the Full Option Science System, which I know schools across South Dakota have used in the past, and they are still keeping those current, and they've been realigned with the standards, so that they support the our state science standards as well as the national science standards, so that some of the kits that might have been used in third grade now support a fourth grade unit, or vice versa. But they're flexible enough that you can use all of these different resources for learning. But today, the DIY apps are something that you could just go and look at and download and use tomorrow, use tonight. And so have fun, and don't forget the importance of the name Lawrence Hall of Science to the state of South Dakota, as he was a South Dakota native, was a graduate of the University of South Dakota, so he is definitely a South Dakota person, and his parents taught in Canton. So this is all very, I'm kind of rambling with some odd facts, but this is a homegrown, world-renowned scientist that we need to honor and remember. And then also, don't forget, today is Earth Day, and so we want to reduce, reuse, and recycle. which is what I'm trying to do with my crazy yarn, and see what happens if I ever get this done, because it takes time to cut all the strips. That's the hard part in that. So again, thank you very much for attending or watching when you watch later. Again, this is Jan Martin with the South Dakota Discovery Center, thanking you for joining us today for remote learning hacks via the Lawrence Hall of Science. Thank you.